Hey, so hi everybody. You guys are more used to me just taking a screenshot of a chart, describing the levels and charting out a strategy, right? I thought I'd try something new, which was to do in some video format. Because I thought actually it could be easier to understand, or maybe the message can be easier uh, through a video. So I thought I'd try this new format. I think there are three stocks that people were curious about. They wanted to know Tesla, CleanSpark, and NEE, I think Nextra Energy. So I'm going to be going through them one by one, giving some thoughts on how I personally view their technicals. Before I dive into the first stock, right, very basic overview. These are not legal financial advice. It's only taking into consideration technicals. They don't take into consideration macro. They do not take into consideration any sort of fundamental analysis. So I just wanted to get that out of the way lah, before I dive into the first stock. So the first stock that we are looking at is Tesla. So I'm not sure if this person is looking to buy, looking to sell, holding, or seeing if he wants to DCA. I'm not sure. I think the best I can do is just give an overview lah. So let's start with the first two observations. Number one is that we recently saw a very huge price rejection at around the 487 level. So I usually draw resistances with red line and I draw supports with blue line. So the resistance over here has sort of started a downtrend also. Why is a downtrend? Because there's lower highs, right? So where does this direction potentially point towards next? It's actually looking at the next support line. I think in between 421 and this 359 level, there's not a lot of strong support lines, or rather areas where I see the price could bounce off lah. So we need to see some further consolidation. But if there is a continuation of this downward trend, I would say that the next retest, right, is this 359 level. So I think when we look at entries or we decide when to enter, we are always looking for breakouts lah. Let's say we are longing. I think if a stock moves sideways, that doesn't really do much for a trader. So I actually see like an ideal entry, right? Of course, this is hindsight lah. But an ideal entry is actually when a breakout is going to happen. We can see that over here, there is some kind of upward trending support line, as well as a challenge of the resistance. Of course, back then this would be a resistance. And then the volume also started to pick up a little bit. Those are all positive signals. So ideally, you want to confirm that the breakout has occurred, and then you enter. And so I think that brings the high likelihood that this trade can continue successfully lah. And that was what we saw. But as of now, if let's say I were to enter now, I will actually wait because we run some risk that this is going to continue its downward line. So we'll rather wait and look for an ideal entry point. So this is the overview. I actually entered Tesla back in 2021 during COVID. I'm going to delete this line here. The previous setup that I did, right, was right around this 300 level. We had a very similar peak or resistance, and I basically avoided Tesla for this region until, right, we actually saw that there is a successful breakout of this resistance. It challenged its new highs, and of course there was an uptick on volume as well. So this was also supported by macros, but again, just looking at technicals here. Eventually that breakout was successful, and I managed to ride up this momentum and before I actually exited right around this level. So as long as we look for good setups, we're able to capitalize large movements in very short period of time. Maybe this was around 2 weeks. So just my personal view lah. So thought I brought up this previous entry. If you guys look far back enough in the group, I believe you can still find it. So that is for Tesla. So the next one was actually CLSK. And CLSK is CleanSpark. I believe they deal with energy, and I believe there's some exposure to crypto as well. So obviously CleanSpark right now, you can see that it's a little bit more volatile. For me to identify the support lines, I actually need to zoom back out a little bit further. And I see one here. So let me zoom back into the near term. Again, I don't know whether looking to buy, looking to sell, or what's the intention. I'll just give an overview. So immediately I'll see that I think between here and here, there are actually some very strong resistance, because you see the prices peak and they all sort of consolidate or coalesce into a level lah. So that is kind of what we saw. We saw a major price rejection. It did not successfully break out, and a downward trend was started after the price rejection. How to observe downward trend is basically lower highs. So what do I see some potential movement next? A key level I would personally look at is the 850 region, because this is the previous support. If this downward trend continues, I would say that it needs to retest this level. It needs to consolidate, find footing, and before it bounces off this support. If let's say 850 does not successfully hold, then you have to challenge the next support, which is around the 645 region. So this is kind of what I see in the near term. Could it be bullish and have a very strong reversal? I would say yes. It has to overcome this downward resistance line. It has to puncture out of this, completely break out, and then form a new strong support before it maybe moves upward again. But until that happens, I would say that this downward trend is likely to continue. So end of the day, you need to look out for these movements. You need to stay updated and continuously review it. Actually, when I was zooming out, right, I actually saw an interesting setup here. I missed this. I did not trade it. But one of my favorite chart patterns is cup and handle. And it's actually forming here. So I think very interesting. We saw a very huge run up, 200%. So I thought that actually it's interesting, but I missed it. So too bad. So this is kind of how I view it. So yeah, nothing else much to say for this. Last example is Nextra Energy. So let's take a look. So Nextra Energy, I think I need to zoom out a little bit. Very similar immediate observations. There are several coalescence of resistances here. And actually right now, right, it's actually at a support level. Let me show you. It has continued its downward trend and it's now hovering around this $70 region. I think if someone has a position in this, I would say that keep up for this level. I would say that if it doesn't hold, right, it gives it some liberty to drop even further. If this 70 region doesn't hold, doesn't find footing, doesn't bounce off, I would say that it would consolidate around the next support level, which is around the 60, 64, 65 region. So we need to look out for that. I think also need to be slightly cautious for another reason. This resembles a head and shoulders chart pattern. So head and shoulder chart pattern looks a little bit like this. And a head and shoulder chart pattern, right, basically points towards a continuation of the downtrend. So how to observe head and shoulders? It's like its name suggests, it resembles left shoulder, head, and a right shoulder. So I think, I don't know if you all can see, but there is some semblance of it. And of course, it could violate. These are not 100%. Please don't think that all these are 100%. These are all just potential probabilities. So that is kind of what I think. Would I enter this right now? I would say no. I will wait for confirmation. Whether this neckline, maybe I use gray, maybe this region, right, is it actually gonna successfully form into a head and shoulders? Or can it hover around here, successfully find footing, and then continue its upward movement? So that is kind of what we need to see. So I hope that that was useful. If this is useful or you guys like it, maybe I'll even consider doing more in the future. So yeah, let me know if there's any questions. And yeah, that's pretty much it.